Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Roundtable. I'm Hunter Lee, and I'm joined here in San Francisco as usual by Spellsy.
Hello.
And joined back in Santa Monica, finally returned to the good old soil of the US of A, Travis Gafford. How are you, Travis?
Hunter, it has been so good to get free refills on drinks again, Arnold Palmer's good Mexican food, be on really good internet again. Like, oh man.
Good Mexican food, you mean Chipotle? That's what you're saying?
I had some Chipotle, but I had like my favorite Mexican restaurant when I got back before the Chipotle. Chipotle is just like the Mexican dessert the next day.
Well, it sounds like you've really gotten back into the swing of things, overeating and over drinking. So welcome back.
Wow.
Okay, so it's been a somewhat quiet week in LCS. Lots of rumors flying everywhere, but very little confirmed. But we'll talk about what there is. Travis, I know you're working with CLG right now on an announcement that they're coming out with. We're recording Thursday. They're coming out with it Friday. What's the news from CLG?
Yeah, so hopefully this all works out and they don't end up delaying the announcement or something, because otherwise I guess we have to delay the show or just cut to black during this time. But in just a couple hours, I will be traveling to beautiful Diamond Bar, California to interview a wonderful person by the name of ZionSpartan, who apparently is officially going to be the top laner for CLG. This is interesting to me because when very funny, whenever the ZionSpartan thing first leaked, whenever the wonderful, wonderful coach of XDG, or XXDG, Kenma, decided to, in such a professional fashion, just bitch about the fact that his people didn't end up getting picked up. From what I understood at the time, ZionSpartan was not actually going to be the top laner. His tweet was wrong or whatever. Somewhere in the time in between, maybe something fell through or something, and he ended up being the top laner. So I'll be interviewing him about exactly what happened, and by the time people are watching this video, the interview about that should be live on the website as well. So yeah, Zion to CLG, in addition obviously to the Scara announcement that we heard sometime last week.
So Seraph out, Zion in. What do you think of that?
It's, as we've said, it's been rumored for a while, so it wasn't a big surprise. But I think that the biggest thing that lots of Redditors have been saying is that they're putting another carry in the top lane after not having success in the past with that kind of playstyle. They still, but I think on the other hand, Zion has a level of mechanical play that's probably the highest out of any of the free agents. That makes him kind of a good choice. But so far, statistically, he hasn't done that well. In history, he hasn't done that well. He might just be a little bit of an overhyped player.
I mean, certainly, I think I'm in a grumpy mood, so I'm going to play super devil's advocate today on the show. But what has Zion done? He led Coast to getting relegated, and then he led Dignitas again. The big signing there to a strong 5th place finish, exactly like the 5th place finish they had before he got there. Travis, why should we be optimistic as this is a major upgrade for CLG?
You've got it all wrong, Hunter. Coast and Dignitas drag Zion down. It's time for him to finally have a team that does totally not have a history of dragging down their top laners.
Yeah, I think
plays on CLG. No, I don't know. I joke about that, but I do kind of think that Zion has not been in a team that has other good carries. I feel like he's had to do a lot of the heavy lifting. I mean, I guess you could argue Shifter whenever has been around as well, but I don't think that has ever really worked out for him. I think that I'm very interested. I've stopped trying to be optimistic for CLG because Lord knows that just doesn't work out. But yeah. I'm very interested to see how this works out. I think that one of the big things that CLG has talked about recently, ever since a couple months ago, of course, when they failed to make it to Worlds, is this idea that they need to try to find people who fit well with the team, people who are going to get along with guys, the guys they look up to C9 in this manner, about how, those guys are all friends, they all get along, and there's a lot of open communication. And they pointed to Dexter and Seraph as two of the problems that they had before with open lines of communication. So I think that Zion is a pretty mature dude now. He's definitely aged over the past couple of years and become more mature as he has. And I think that he has an opportunity to bring a pretty level-headed, chill person to the team that might be able to help them in the long run.
Yeah, I think you said earlier that like ZionSpartan had been surrounded by kind of mediocre teammates. I kind of agree with you on that. Up until this last split on Dignitas, if you asked me like 6 months ago, I would have been like, man, ZionSpartan's really quality quality top laner. Like I think he has lots of potential. But then this last split, he just hasn't done that well, even though he's been surrounded by people who I think are good, like Crumbs, and I personally think Cutie Pie was pretty good, maybe not in this last split, and I think Shifter is pretty good, like, and he kind of didn't do anything special.
Well, the weird thing about this move, and this is just like Scar as well, is ultimately he's moving to a team that finished worse than the team he was on last split. Dignitas beat CLG and forced CLG into relegation, and yet I think just because of the brand power and potentially salary, which we don't have a lot of information about, somehow this is seen as like a move up for both Scara and Zion. CLG is a bad team. They were a bad team. Dignitas was also a bad team, but CLG was a worse team and finished even worse. Is this really an upgrade for them, Travis?
Yeah, I think it is, because if you look at Dignitas and you assume Cutie Pie is going to retire, what are you left with? You're left with Shifter, who is pretty good, but then you're left with Kiwi Kid, who I don't think very many people felt was one of the stronger supports. So you're changing out like a vacant spot left by Cutie Pie with Double Lift, who is a good friend of mine, so anything I say will just be thought of as fanboying, but I think he's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
And I feel like the statistics probably show that. And then Aframu, who is possibly the best support in North America right now. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that you're moving into a better position. I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to go on with their with like Link and all that, but I do think that you're moving into a better position. I also personally feel that we have seen CLG. CLG seems to be more interested in. I actually feel like the organizational structure at CLG is maybe a little bit better for a team to. They're more committed to getting the resources that they need than Dignitas, I think, historically. That's how I would argue, because I also don't think that you would see Scara and Comely switch over to, or Drunk Scar, switch over to the CLG organization unless they felt the same way. So I don't know. I actually just feel like CLG is more hungry for the wins than Dignitas.
Well, let's stick with that for a minute. So Scar comes over. I mean, I do think, I think I trust you on the internal resources and politics. You're closer to that than certainly we are up here in San Francisco. But I sort of have the same general question for Scar coming over, which is, what makes you think he's a particularly good coach? It's not like Dignitas looked like a particularly well-coached team last split. Inconsistent play the whole time, totally choke, questionable decisions against TSM, then crush a just downwardly spiraling CLG. Why do we think Scar is good at coaching?
I mean, I think if you're CLG, you need somebody to be kind of like the person who is like the leader head of who's going to select the rosters and all this kind of stuff, who's going to be the boss guy, who actually like knows about the game. They have like Matcom, who's like probably a good organizational leader or whatever, but you need somebody who has like the experience I think Scar brings. But like you said, I don't know if he has the, like Nian and many other people have been outspoken recently about how CLG had like really negative atmosphere, and Double Lift in the Travis interview had said that too. I don't know if Scar has the coachability, like you said.
I mean, I love Scar. He's my favorite streamer by far. He's clearly knowledgeable about the game and an enjoyable analyst. But that's really different than the people management part that you need from a coach, and it's only going to be more important as rosters trans over. What do you see in him, in Travis, in Scar that would give you confidence that he's good at this?
Well, I do have to raise what, before I get into that, because I do have an answer, but before I get into that, I do have to raise what probably most of the people watching would say in response to Spellsy's thing, which is like, they need somebody, if only they had somebody who's been playing for a while, has the game knowledge, could lead or whatever, and it's like, well, hotshot GG.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, of course that's the first thing people will say.
But in Season 4, I think we saw, maybe like he said he was going to re-enter again, but in Season 4 we saw him like kind of drop off the face of the earth. Like Kelby had gotten the spotlight more in Season 4 than Hotshot GG.
At least as a manager. I mean, we saw Hotshot streaming, but not as a day-to-day manager of the team. So, but I think that's fair.
I guess at this point in time, I would just say that time and time again, like we've heard about Hotshot getting more involved, and he's always willing to be like a very outspoken and like, I'm going to fix this stuff. But I would say that if you're CLG, as we've talked about many times before, you're looking for dramatic changes. Maybe it's just like, okay, Hotshot is just like, this is enough. We're going to put Hotshot aside. In terms of the Scara thing, there's a more jaded look at it rather than like, what is he going to bring or why is he going to be good? The more jaded look is like, who else do you get? Because we're still, I mean, everyone's talked about the fact that it's so hard to get a coach. There's very few people who have the experience and can do it. And so I think maybe if you're a CLG, you just look around and you're like, okay, well, we're cool with Scara, we respect Scara. I mean, that's the big thing too, is that CLG has a lot of egos. You need somebody who they can respect. If they all agree that they respect Scara, maybe that's kind of what you need. So we'll have to see. Also, Comley, I think, has proven himself to be pretty good, at least in terms of getting information. I mean, let's not forget Dignitas had a very, very strong opening this last split.
Yay.
So,
and a terrible closing. Like, I mean, that's fine. Comley is certainly the best ghost tweeter of any coach in NALCS, that's for sure. But like, I guess Scar has a monumental task in front of him. He walks into a team with really only 2 dedicated players that have been there before, a solid bot lane, 3 open spots, a history of underperforming and kind of letting fans down, and also like giant pressure and expectations for this team continually every split somehow, even though they haven't delivered on it in forever. That's very much like a tall task. In one sense, it's a great opportunity. He can remake the team into his image, but it's also, if they don't do well, you're going to be looking at him and the decisions he made when he put this roster together, and he's going to have to own that.
Yeah, I think that's why you want a coach that's been in the scene and knows all of the players and all that kind of stuff, rather than picking up somebody from Korea maybe, or like with maybe more of the people management skills, but less of the knowledge of like who are you going to get.
But if we end up, well, I think I think that was a great point, Travis. That if Scar is the best of what they have, then that's who they should get. And if Zion's the best of what's out there, that's who they should get. And if they end up with Zion and Link and miscellaneous like B tier jungler and then Rush Hour, and that's the best they can do, then so be it. I'd love for them to come out and say like, well, it's not great, but like who else would we get? And then you're looking at 4th or 5th place again and somehow hoping for something different. I think the buddy system is like, it's charming. It's nice to think that we all want to be friends and like get together, and that chemistry is the real secret. And maybe that's something Scara can bring. Dignitas at least did seem to get along really well. Travis, you were around the team more. They did at least seem to really be friends.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think Scara has a history of working with difficult personalities. It's hard to imagine too many people that are more difficult than working with Cutie Pie. I mean, he's very entertaining and stuff like that, but I would never really vote for him to be my coworker. So I think that, yeah, like he does have that history of working with unique personalities and working in interesting situations. So we'll have to see what he can do. And again, as everyone always says, it's only spring split. This is when you experiment so that you can see what will happen in the summer split. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so in the realm of transfers and acquisitions and stuff, we were the first to reprint an article out of China showcasing some more info on the scene in general. I know, Travis, you worked with Nilu on some follow-up articles as well, just to getting more information out there about how huge the Chinese scene has become. We've seen $1 million offers to Faker that he's turned down, lots of player movement from Korea. I think where we were originally thinking that big talent drain would be foreign players coming to NNA, it looks like China has just risen up and is now the place with all the money and the destination. Spellsy, where do you see this going? Is China now the premier region in League of Legends?
I mean, it has to be just because of the viewership and the money, I think. Like we saw, what was it, the World Elite stream got like 1 million viewers or something like that concurrent when they were just streaming. Like that's unheard of numbers for Twitch or something.
Yeah.
So I think given the money and the viewership, they have to be the premier, even though like us as Americans wanted that to be North America.
Right.
But I kind of feel with like $1 million being thrown around and 800,000 from that article with Calmate, like I feel like the revenue is not sustainable. Like I don't know how they're like with ads, and I don't know how, I've heard ads in China are worth less. Like I mean, I don't see this being a sustainable future.
Yeah, I think that's a problem that esports is dealing with in general, Travis. That the growth is there, the interest is there, but is it a business? Certainly for Korean players, this is a place they're turning to kind of cash in after their success in the sort of more hardcore competitive league and get the money that maybe they weren't getting in Korea. Where do you see this going?
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to say a bunch of stuff. I don't want anybody to consider this like an official report, because these are like the type of rumors and vague understanding I have of how this stuff is working in the scene. But from what I've understood, or what I'm understanding, it seems as though a lot of these teams are there. There seems to be this new thing where, at least for a couple teams, you know, if you're like a rich millionaire, billionaire, whatever in China, you can pick up a team and have it sort of be like a toy, and so you can spend all this money in it because you've got, you know, like for some people, like $1 million isn't that much. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but for some people it isn't. And so I think that there are a lot of people in China who maybe, you know, are really interested in league. They've got a lot of money. Obviously, like, this turns into a huge, bigger discussion about the Chinese economy and what's going on over there. But I do think that there's just a lot of money that people are sort of throwing into these teams for fun because they like it. The other thing is that we heard about this is also somewhat, I think, linked to the, what was it, Calme $800,000 streaming contract.
Yeah.
This was a topic that I've sort of been learning more about over the past year, starting with Tabe talking to me about it at Worlds last year, whenever he was telling me he could make more money being retired than I think just because of the sheer amount of people in China, and the sheer amount of viewers and that kind of thing that streamers can get. You know, like that's where you see a lot of these big numbers coming in, especially for streaming contracts. People open up these like stores over there. Basically, like if you're a popular streamer, you open up a store and you sell stuff, and it's like cheap or whatever. And I don't know, it's always just like random stuff like crap and all that. But because there are so many people that watch your stream and tune into your stuff, like, you make a whole lot of money on this. It's very, very unique system. But I think that's where we're looking at all this money coming in. I don't really know exactly how that ties into the team stuff. Obviously, I know how the streaming stuff works, but China's just a very strange scene. It's kind of interesting because I think that this year kind of marks a interesting landmark for us and the scene where, like, the mystery that is China is starting to open up, and we're starting to hear crazy stuff of it, starting with like maybe the LMQ piece I wrote a while back, where we're hearing all sorts of sketchy stories, and we're hearing like crazy inflated salaries, and it's just a very, very interesting place over there. And I'm very fascinated to see what that ends up doing for us in 2015 and what like leverage those guys have.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways China is living the NA dream for what esports would be like, and moving a lot closer to the traditional sports model here in the States, where you have extremely wealthy owners, of which this is a pittance of money to invest, but still a large money relative to other people. Steve Ballmer buys the Clippers, you know, here in LA, or there in LA, for $2 billion, which is like 1/50th of what he's worth, right? Like, it's $2 billion, why not just buy a basketball team? And that's you know, in real sports operates, these guys have so much money that they can infuse all of this cash up front into these sports. That's what's happening in China. We want, you know, I think a lot of people want our players to be recognized and famous and get the money they deserve and be big stars and have major sponsors come in. And that seems to be happening in China. And yet there's a lot of this sort of quick to be concerned it's a bubble, or there's no way this is sustainable, or like there's all this sketchy behavior, these other things.
Like some
maybe
people
it's just
said, like,
a huge
it's
success.
fake money
it's
or whatever.
Yeah, who
like,
knows? I don't know. Maybe it's just a big success.
It could be.
I think that's weird because we think of, you know, we still think of NA as like the premier region, but maybe China's just ahead, and that's okay.
I think that's possible, but I mean, as a viewer, it's very disconcerting when your #1 team, who won $1 million, which was like such a huge landmark prize 2 years ago or whatever,
right?
And now are just like completely gone. Like, they don't, like, there's no competition. I think now the rise for like the finals competition is more of like a kind of trophy rather than a monetary thing, because if Faker's making $1 million in a year,
Yeah.
what is $200,000? I mean, like that's
It's
like
not
a
as
decent
much.
bonus.
I know, and it
but,
sounds
like,
silly, but but that's how traditional sports work. Nobody's playing to win the NBA championship because they get the big check. Then like they might indirectly be able to cash it in, and all the Samsung White guys left, and they might be able to cash that in now when they go to the next thing. But it's not like I got my $200,000, like I'm rich.
But it's like if there were 5 sports leagues, one of them pays way more than the other ones. And then these other ones just don't get paid. And since they're region specific, it's actually important. Like Koreans want to watch Koreans because it's better at their broadcast time. NA want to watch NA because it's better suited for them. The English broadcast,
Right.
If everybody just tries to keep going, shoving into China just because they pay 10 times more than Europe or something, then like.
But I think we always want one of our esports to be basketball or baseball, where we're the best in the world. And it's looking a lot more like this one is becoming soccer, where Asia is the Europe, in this case, with all the money and the talent and the ability to spend. And we're just like, well, we got our MLS. Our guys are good relative to our guys, right?
I think that I think you guys are overvaluing the pull of China. Like, yes, they can pull some of these top tier players and coaches and managers and stuff over from Korea, but again, like people can go back and see the interview I did with Zero right after they won semis and made it into the finals. A Korean player who is on a top tier Chinese team and is saying after getting in the finals, I still want to join a North American team. I think that even besides like the monetary things, there's a lot of reason for people to want to go to North America. Talking to a lot of Korean players, they feel that it's more comfortable to them, like a more comfortable lifestyle over here than in China, and they just would rather be here. So I think we're still able to pull some pretty big names over, and who knows, like roster season is probably still only halfway done. Like we could see some of these guys come over here. I mean, I'm sure there's also a reason why Faker turned down the $1 million to go over there, even though that is a ridiculous number. So I think that North America is still. If any Europe region is screwed, it's Europe. Those guys are just dead. Like it's over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Europe, but something needs to happen over there to help boost them up. For North America, I'm not as concerned.
Well, it's certainly true. I think we'd all agree, like, the more balanced the regions are, both competitively and financially, the healthier the sport is as a whole. And Riot's got to be working to figure that out. It just doesn't look like maybe we're moving in the right direction on that. And instead of evening out, we have just a second, like a second region that seems to be rising up and the others are falling behind. And I expect we'll see that even more clearly next year. I'm expecting whatever Worlds to be in China next year and an increased focus from Riot on an international stage to kind of feature that region and what's happening there. Not just because Tencent is there, but just because there are millions of people. Like you check out the Chinese streaming sites, and there are 250,000 people watching some guy who doesn't, like the Night Blue 3 of China. 250,000, and maybe it's not worth as much, but still, that's way more people than are watching even Bjergsen here in the States.
Yeah, and I think Riot has slowly been moving to Asia. I mean, because they should. Like they posted that 80% of their players are in Asia. And starting in Season 3 finals, I think they started moving there more and more. And it's just kind of, I mean, it's the valid strategy. I think if I were in their shoes, I would make the same decision. But it's just kind of sad as a American or whatever, seeing like movies are moving more to China and trying to aim more to international audiences. And now the esports are. I mean, it's tough to be an American.
Cheers for NA. It's tough to be an American. You heard that,
No,
Travis.
it's not. We are the best country in the world. I am so pissed off at you right now, Spellsy. Plus, North American scene has never been better. Like, we're bringing in good talent.
Yeah.
We did better at Worlds this year than we ever have. I mean, I know some people will go on Twitter and be like, yeah, well, look at the Asian percentage teams. Blah, blah, blah. North America looks great. It's only getting better. Sellers are good. I'm loving it here. Let freedom ring, baby.
Yeah, I think you are right.
Let's come up with more fast food slogans. So here we get to have it our way, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
I might be being a little bit overdramatic, but it's going to be. There's still a lot to like fall out. Like
for sure.
All of the North American teams still haven't had solidified rosters. We don't even know where all the Korean people are going. Like there's a lot of rumors and not that much solidification.
For sure.
So we'll see, like, probably 3 months in.
Yeah, but 10 years from now, we're going to look back. And we'll say this is when it really tipped over. That's my, 10-year prediction. You can put it down. 10 years from now, we'll look back. This is when it really tipped over and League became, a Chinese and Korean dominated scene, and NA and EU sort of, this is the highest point. This is like the beginning of the end or whatever, where it's not going to get any higher from here. I just think it's really hard. It's really hard. If we can't poach the best talent in the world, how are we going to be good at this?
China can only have 2 foreign players on every team.
Yes. So?
We get the rest.
We get the rest. There we go. They get the best. We get the rest. That's your slogan, NA. Don't worry. All right. So moving on then, I think we are all not necessarily excited, but always interested when a new champion is released. Kalista was previewed today, or Kalista, I'm not exactly sure how they're pronouncing it. A spooky, niddly, ghost javelin throwing marksman. First impressions?
It's just in time for Halloween.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, it's Canadian Halloween. They do that later, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think she has her passive is very interesting to me. I think her
the dash on attack move hop thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for that's like a fun mechanic. I think it's just mobility is fun. That's why we've seen so much mobility
for sure.
And so I think the issue though with her is that they've built a lot of utility into her kit. There's this Soul Link thing which is like up in the air.
Yeah.
That we still will have to see.
Yeah.
And then. Her visual design, I don't really like it.
I don't like the visual design at all. It seems once you soul bound, there's a permanent visual, spooky connection between you and your soul bound person. The entire game, you're going to have 40 minutes of green light connecting you and that other person. That just seems like it's going to be incredibly annoying. Travis, she seems very different. Does this look interesting?
Okay, so two things. One is, God, if she's in a lane with Thresh, it's going to look so weird.
Yeah, it's going to be so green.
She has the total Karthus, green blobs of mysterious whatever happening. Yeah.
However, this is why I am very excited. She is designed by one of my favorite champion designers, Certainly T. They call him Certainly True Damage internally because a bunch of his champions have true damage, but he's designed really fantastic and really interesting champions in the past. Now, I will admit that, looking at her at first glance, she might not seem as, competitively interesting as some of the other stuff he's done in the past, but I have faith that certainly T will come through, that this will be, a super fascinating champion.
Well, certainly if anybody can stuff too much into a champion and make them unbalanceable, it's certainly T, and we can put our
But they always end up being the, coolest champions to watch competitively. He's done Yasuo.
Yeah.
Okay, here's his champions: Darius, Zed, Thresh, Zyra, Yasuo.
Yeah. I mean,
Did he do Aatrox too?
I have major issues with a bunch of those champions, but Thresh being the major one that is just so over designed.
Yeah,
I
but
think
Thresh
it's just
is
crazy.
okay, yes, you're right. He's really good, but also super awesome for an esports fan.
Yeah.
You would never want Thresh to. If you were okay, well, he's really OP. Should we just remove him or nerf him to the ground so he's not competitively viable? No, never. I love seeing people ride that friggin' lantern halfway across the map to safety in a million situations.
Yeah, but you also are in the situation where you only like seeing one champion every game.
Yeah, here's what I'd say. I think it's an interesting. She has another one of those ults where you're like, what? This is actually in the game? I absorb my fellow champion for a couple of seconds, make them invulnerable, and then spit them back out into the world. Someone approved this. It's a lot like Azir's design where it seems like someone at some point should have walked into the room and be like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're not doing champion absorption and redistribution, and we don't know if you can summon your partner from all over the map and that kind of stuff. It's so weird, much like Azir, that I think it's going to take a long time to see. It's a good time to put it out in one sense because no one's going to be playing it competitively for a while. But it's so weird. I have no idea how this would affect the scene. It's either I think it's going to be one of those. It's either crazy, just like every Certainly T thing, either crazy OP and totally unusable, and they have to nerf it into a ground, or so awkward that nobody wants to get anywhere near it.
Well, this is what they've been doing with all their new champions. They've even somewhat talked about this, is that as they slow down champion production, they want to make sure that every single champion that they put out is very unique and interesting, and really challenges them as game designers. So I don't know, like like whenever I look at her, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just like a marksman, Nidalee."
Yeah.
But I have high hopes.
I mean, I have high
Certainty
hopes.
has never failed me before.
I think they've done an interesting thing, which is they created an AD carry with slow attack speed, low range, and only 2 damaging spells. And then somehow she's supposed to put out more damage than anyone else on the team. That's like that was a real design challenge. I just wish they could create design challenges that also weren't balance challenges for a team that seems to have a really hard time balancing the game anyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for her, though, more than I was for Azir, because one of my favorite AD carries is Ezreal, and like for that feeling of like going and shooting a nice Q and then like and hitting it and being able to follow up on that, and I think she has that amplified. She like has like the nice Q snipe, but then you can also dash off the Q, and then it's like even more kind of outplay potential, and I think it should be fun. Hopefully it's not like a light mode Vayne. I don't know. The big problem is the 2 utility spells.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Preseason hits.
I want to see the last time we had. I'm trying to find the last time we had a new AD carry. I can't even. It's been so long. I think.
I assume it's Lucian or Jinx. I can't remember the
Lucian.
order. Lucian. Yeah.
No, it was Jinx, right?
I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it's Jinx.
But yeah, they put both of those guys out like back to back. But yeah. Well, I think it'll be really interesting. Preseason hits real soon. We're getting map previews and balance previews and everything. We're going to see a totally different, visually a different game, and in terms of gameplay, a really different game soon. So there's going to be lots to digest. Rosters getting shaken out, everything. Travis, you're going to BlizzCon this upcoming weekend, so should be lots of interesting stuff there. Hearthstone coverage, Heroes coverage, looking around some. What are you looking forward to at BlizzCon?
Honestly, like I've gone to every single BlizzCon except for the very first back when I was in high school. And I absolutely love BlizzCon. I mean, I know this is a League of Legends show, but by the way, one of the coolest things, there's going to be some of these washed out League of Legends pros that are going to be playing Heroes of the
Shots
Storm.
fired.
I cannot wait to interview Bishu.
Yeah.
Ah, baby.
All right.
And it's going to be great.
All
So,
right.
yeah, people can catch that up.
The other great thing about BlizzCon is that 1 year ago today, Travis, you and I and a small group of other people at the time launched a little site called ongamers.com. And we started right at BlizzCon, and we get to mark this anniversary November 7th a year ago. We got this little venture off the ground. It's been a long year. It's been a tough year, but it's also been a great year, and I'm really proud of what we've done. So thank you for being with us 1 whole year, Travis, and it's onward and upward from here. Thumbs up from Travis. Spellsy joined us along the way. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week, of course, talking about God knows what's going to happen, and we'll see you then.